everybody, and welcome in yet again to the show here on your sports network. I'm Alec Cabrera. That's Matt Morrison. This is the Casual Sports Podcast, day 2 of keeping it local here on this show. Matt, we got Thursday night football. Didn't see many close games in the region, which is a bit of disappointment, but we saw some teams absolutely show out last night, and one of them on this shirt, Youngstown Holy War shirt, Mooney and Ursuline, I go Mooney in that rivalry. I've covered them a lot more, so that's the way I lean over there. But, reading down some of these scores from last night, Ursuline goes over Brookfield 52-14. How about this one? Janie starts it big, 34-2 over Poland. Crestview keeps it close. They're going to be a big team to watch out for in the MVAC this season, but they do end up losing to Salem 17-7. Jackson Milton probably had, I think, the biggest game of the night, went 54-0 over Leetonia. Niles took down Howland 21-7. They scored a lot more points than they did in that game last year, about 22 more. So you like to see that at
Niles
least.
Niles gets it back.
Right, Niles took it right back. 6-0 for Howland last year and 21-7 for Niles this year. What a rivalry back and forth there. But South Range goes big over Springfield 37-7. They saw some really good performances. Toronto took down Wellsville 34-8. Newton Falls went up 41-0 over St. John Ashtabula. Edgewood ended up picking the win as well. They got a 2-point conversion, winning at 15-14. Sebring took a loss to open up the season against Lincoln West, 36-14. And those are all the scores from yesterday's 10 games. And tonight, Matt, we got 23 games going up on the network. You and I got a big one of those in the form Valley Christian and Campbell. It should be a fun one, I think, that we're going to get down into tonight. We'll talk about that later on in the show as well. But for games tonight, looking about 83, 82, 81 degrees, so low 80s. It's going to pretty much stay like that all throughout the games. 40% humidity. So, we're looking for some beautiful weather at these games tonight, Matt. It should be pretty good. Wind, not too much of a factor. Shouldn't hit over 5 miles an hour. You might get a couple of gusts, but weatherman Alex starting out the show. We got good weather coming up tonight.
Sweet.
That's exactly what you want, right? Start the season off with some beautiful weather. Then we turn it to crap later on.
I'm on Mud Bowl.
Oh, you know it, man. We talked about it yesterday. We still won it today. All right, we got a pretty good game, though, starting out to talk about today. Beaver Local taking on Indian Valley. Both teams finished off 7-4 last year. Beaver Football, though, finished 4-0 in the Buckeye 8 North. They had a great season, only taking a loss in their first playoff game against Glenville and 2 opening games against this Indian Valley team, 37-26. Then they lost the following week to Salem, 62-35. They wouldn't lose again until the final week of their regular season against Wheeling Central Catholic, which they dropped at 21-7. Indian Valley, though, they had just as great of a season. They lost in the middle part to Garraway 14-0, to Ridgewood 17-14. Then they dropped their second playoff game to Heath 41-20. So you're looking at 2 teams coming in here off of a great season last year. Really great offenses both coming out on this field. Defense last year was a little better for Indian Valley, but you saw both of these offenses really nullify their defensive efforts at a lot of times. Matt, when you look at this game, what are you seeing between these two?
1 second. I don't know. I got allergies so bad. But these 2 teams, it's going to be a tough battle. Ooh, my bad. Which team were we talking about again?
Beaver Local and Indian Valley.
Okay, Beaver Local. I've heard a lot about them. I've heard a lot of talk about them, how they should have an up-and-coming program. I believe they've been down the past couple of years. I think this year we might see some fight out of them. So I don't know what I've heard, but I've heard a lot of talk about Beaver Local, just in the midst of being around people. So we'll have to see. I know some people that know some people that go to Beaver Local, so they're saying some good things about them. So I think they should have a pretty good team this year. We'll have to see. But, first game of the year, you always got to start out with the win. Yeah,
you do, and it's something they didn't do last year. Still put together a great season. The momentum they can create by picking up a win here in week 1 really could potentially carry them to a strong season again this year and potentially another finish atop their conference. I'm going Beaver Local in this game here, Matt, on a pick.
I'll go Beaver Local.
All right, next game, a big one. neither team's been great in recent years, but that could turn around on any day because both these teams have a lot of resources that they pull from. Boardman and Cardinal Mooney, a great game between these two is what I'm expecting tonight. Last year, not the case. 28-7, Boardman ran away with it, and Mooney had a really down year. They only won their game against Howland 23-12. That was their only win in 10 games. So they're really looking to turn things around this season. They got to find some ways to get that offense going. Boardman, they went 4-5, but it may have been more due to a lack of offense at some times rather than a lack of defense. They only allowed 163 points altogether on the season, but their offense, they were good. They outscored their defense, but it didn't translate into wins. Their wins had really big score totals, and they went up against those harder opponents in Canfield, Fitch, Harding, Benedictine, Massillon, Jackson. They went up in a hard slate, and they just weren't able to pick up those wins in there. And I think you go into it this season. I've talked to some people at Mooney. Obviously, I covered them for basketball, and I think a lot of people are excited about where this team can potentially go this season. I think a lot of people are hoping, though, for a much better outcome than what we saw last year out of them. 1-9. You can improve on that pretty easily, and they're once again playing in a tough Steel Valley Conference. Ursuline and Cheney both look good already on the season, and this Mooney team lost it to Cheney last year. That Cheney squad, man, they got a lot of fun guys on that roster. So I think when you come back this season and you look towards what these two teams can do, I think it should be a tight one out. I think a lot of people right now are leaning towards Boardman on the pick. YSN puts out our picks here, and at the moment, I got two guys that I'm seeing right now picking Mooney in this game. One of them, Steve Leslie, and I'm the other one. So a little bit of bias off my end to take Mooney in this game, but I like the way Mooney went. Mooney's going about things. I'm hoping they can turn it around. They really need a win to start the season, so I'm going Mooney on it to win things here in this one. I think it's going to be a tight game either way, though, because I think they're semi-evenly matched. Boardman might have a little bit more there, but Mooney can shock him. And Matt is currently out of the show. He'll be back here momentarily. Like you said, he has allergies, probably getting a glass of water or something. So we'll just go ahead to the next game here. And all right, yeah, Colombiana. Their score was not posted on the YSN after last night's game. Let me go ahead and pull that up. Colombiana doesn't play until tonight. They go up against Lowellville tonight there, Michael Dunn, just so you know. But on to the next game, we got Canfield, West Branch, one of the big high-profile games going on this weekend. You love that opening weekend rivalry matchups and putting big names against one another is a prime example of that. Both teams have been, pretty good in recent years here. So obviously Canfield took down Boardman last year. They finished 11-2 overall. And, you look across the board here at West Branch, they've been pretty good in just about every sport for a while. So when you walk into this game between these two teams, I think you should expect a fun one, no doubt. But this thing should be a shootout. Both teams coming in with epic offenses. West Branch last season put up 656 points in 14 games, made a deep run of the playoffs, only came short of, going all the way. Thanks to a loss to Ursuline, who did end up going all the way and falling just short there at the end. But you look at this West Branch team from last year, they return a lot of talent. Canfield's going to return a lot of talent. You put these two up against one another, it should be a slugfest back and forth. Should be fun here. And looking down at picks, seeing a lot of people are favoring Canfield going into this game, only a handful taking West Branch. So we'll see how this develops. But at the moment, it looks like Canfield heavy favorite going into this game. So, Matt, welcome back to the show here. Canfield and West Branch, what are your thoughts on that matchup?
Canfield versus West Branch is always a good game every year. West Branch is a very competitive team, as well as Canfield. As we know that from past years, Canfield and West Branch always go at it. The past couple of years, I believe it's been close games. Canfield, let's see, I'm going to look at it.
11-2 last year.
What was it? Yeah, 11-2 last year. I was trying to look at the score. Maps preps. They're horrible.
They didn't play last year.
They didn't play last year? Okay.
I don't believe so.
Okay. But it should be a pretty good matchup. I like Canfield. I'm leaning towards Canfield, but honestly, I'm going to pick the upset here. I'm going to go West Branch.
I like that pick. I think
stun people.
Yeah, I like that pick. I think when you look at them, they're definitely a team that I think can come out and shock a lot of folks here in week one. They had a really great season last year. I mean, they made it all the way down, to take on Ursuline deep into the playoffs. They scored over 600 points on offense in 14 games. They were just an absolute monster last year, and we're only outdone by a handful of teams. And Ursuline just had an absolutely loaded bunch last year, and looks like they're pretty loaded again this year. But I take Canfield in this one, but I like your upset there pick with West Branch. I talked about this game right when you were leaving. Boardman versus Cardinal Mooney. What do you got in that game?
Boardman, very competitive team. We've seen them great every year pretty much. Mooney, football is not their strongest.
Used to be.
Used to be. Oh, man, back in the day, Mooney used to be like –
They're still rated as the top 10.
To go play Mooney.
Well, historically speaking here, Matt, the state of Ohio, they're ranked as a top 10 program statewide. Yeah. So, I mean, they have the name recognition throughout.
They sure do. But, I mean, last year they were kind of down last year. We called one of their games last year. They're not the best. They're great in other sports, very competitive in baseball. So they keep the program up and going with their other sports, but football in recent years just hasn't been
baseball and basketball both had a great season.
Oh yeah, as you would know. So,
I was there. Yeah, I can literally say I know because I was there.
Yeah, but Mooney in football just isn't the same like it was back in the day. You're not terrified when you go and play them. A lot of teams look at it as an easy dub, honestly. So I'm gonna go Boardman. Boardman stronger program.
Yeah, I did take Mooney in this game. I'll take a little bit of bias, but hey, they're on my shirt, so I kind of have to pick them, right? Like I said, explain to the viewers, I've heard a lot of good things about the offseason here for Mooney, and I've heard a lot of fans are expecting a better season. Whether or not that comes to fruition, don't know. We don't have rosters in front of us, so I can't even tell you who's coming back this season and what each team has. So,
Pelini.
Yeah, Pelini. That's an interesting storyline. Always is.
Yeah.
That bloodline's got a lot of history in the area. But next game on the network, Garfield versus Cardinal. I love this matchup. Garfield dominated last year 49-6. But remember, Dema, he's gone, graduated. The demolition crew. So, we talked to them last year when we just got on the field when they were going up against Brookfield, and it was a really great game for Garfield as well. That was a really fun game to watch. They won it 31-17 thanks to Anthony Dema. And, I'd gone down and asked them, and it's like, what are you doing after Dema's gone? And they just went, we set this offense up when Dema came in. This was built for him, and we were able to tool guys around it. If we can keep this system working and find somebody else that works in that system, they'll keep it. But it could be a complete wild card. And I think the fact that they were able to find a system that worked so well for that player and were very successful with it. And I think it's going to leave a lot of hope that they're going to be able to repeat that. And whoever comes in, whoever they're going to have step up this season is going to be able to fit right into that system and be able just to, go right with it with the best of them. So I think looking at them this season, maybe not a 12-1 season, undefeated in the regular season. They ended up dropping to Kirtland, who was on a 50-game win streak when we saw them. They were phenomenal last season. That game. Yeah, we did. It was up there in Lake.
Kirtland versus Garfield up in Perry.
Yeah, that was a really fun game, but yeah, it was. I mean, talk about literally nothing but running the football. It's both those teams' bread and butters. But Matt, like I'm saying here, Garfield, I think their scheme is going to be fine, and they had a great defense last year. So even though Dema's not there offensively, there were times they were pretty much every one of their games, their opponent scored once or twice. There's only, I'm looking at it now, 2 games in which a team had over 14 points against them last season. Well, 3 games, pardon me, Kirtland in the playoffs. So 2 regular season games where a team scored twice on them. So no matter what you say about the offense and where you think this offense for Garfield is going to go, defensively, they're still going to be an absolute monster. So you got to watch out for that. The only question mark going in is who's going to run the offense this time out.
Well, I'm sure we'll see. They play Brookfield again, so I'm sure we'll see the setup.
Yeah, right. Well, that'll be out in Garfield, so we won't see it this season.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see if we get any Garfield games. I'd like to see them. I'll probably tune into that Garfield Brookfield game on your sports network when it comes around later on in the season. But Matt, on the side here of Cardinal football, they had a pretty good season last year, 7-4, finished just second place in conference, ended up dropping their first playoff game to Hillsdale. They lost at 12-7, and what was surely an upset for them. They had only been held to less than 7 points twice in the season prior to that, and both times it happened, they lost. So they had 3 shutouts defensively, and they were looking really good last year. If they can return this season, this should be one heck of a matchup. And they fell short against Garfield last time. I don't think it's going to be that easy this time around, though.
No, I don't think so either. But Garfield, the big void is Anthony Dema. But, players leave all the time. I'm sure they'll figure some stuff out. I'm going to go with them again, though. I'm going to stick with them. I think they can figure that out. That was the only big guy that they lost. So
yeah, other than that, they had a pretty young team around them, too. I think they lost a couple others, but really not that much around Dema that was lost, I think. No. So next game up on our slate here, got Colombiana taking on Lowellville. Colombiana's coming off a 3-5 season. We've seen them be really good in other sports since then. And I think a lot of people hope that some of those athletes will come into the football program, help it out a little bit there. Went 2-2 in the EOAC last year, hoping for a better change up this season. Lowellville, though, they continue to have one of the most dominating offenses in the area. Went 7-3 last year, 4-2 in conference play, finished third in the MVAC Scarlet. I think they're definitely a team to watch out for again. They constantly have an offense that is just designed to put up points. Defensive struggles sometimes that has cost them, especially in the playoffs against Malvern. Their offense got stagnant and they let up 34 points, which was a lot more than they had let up in prior games. But you look at some of their other games, they're still allowing over 20 points. They're a Big 12 team playing high school football is really what it looks like. They probably a game they should win this year. They won it 50-27 last year. Colombiana could surprise him here, but I like Lowellville going into this season. They're a really fun team to watch too, because it's just constant back and forth.
Yeah, and we'll be seeing them soon, I believe. Next week?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure if we're on the schedule yet for that one, but Lowellville takes on Campbell Memorial next week, and I believe we might be getting sent out there.
Okay.
On the unofficial schedule, I believe that's where we are.
Okay. I'm sure we'll find out soon enough. But Lowellville, great program over the years, so yeah, watch out for them.
Should be a pretty good one there.
Oh, yeah.
I'm taking Lowellville. Who you got?
Yeah, I'll go to the Rockets.
All right, next game going up then. Youngstown East back in action. They got a hard one to start out the season. They're going up against Hubbard, which is obviously a local powerhouse. They've been pretty good in their entire history. And last season, 10-2, another good year. And they didn't even lose down until they went up against South Range. Then they lost to Canfield in the second round of the playoffs. So it was a really phenomenal season for them last year. Not the same outcome for East. They ended up going 1-7. Couldn't pick up a win in the Steel Valley. Can you blame them? Look at that conference. But they had a lot of offensive woes last season that they're going to need to change here. Youngstown East, they're fun to watch. I'll put that out there. Well, no matter what sport it is, they're always seemingly fun to watch. At times, it seems like they just can't finish games and can't pull them out there in the end. I'm interested to see what they come out with this season, but I think when you look at Hubbard, they're just returning a lot of players and a really great system, a really great program. And I think at the moment in preseason rankings, they're ranked in the top 15, top 10 in the Youngstown area via Max Prep. So they're a team that you can expect to hear a lot about this season on the network and hear a lot about just, anywhere. They're 19th in Division III here in preseason rankings.
Yeah, Hubbard, always a great program in football. They did lose T.C. Caffey to Ohio State, but that's going to be a huge void that I have to fill because he was he was bringing in some yards. I'll tell you that. Big dude running. But overall, they're bringing back a lot of guys. So I think they'll have enough guys to fill that void of TC being gone. So, yeah, Hubbard, good team every year, pretty much. I'd love to see Hubbard go up against Brookfield.
I don't know if I would. Not after that first showing we saw at Brookfield this season. They need to keep it in their own division. That was well, going up against Ursuline to start out the season, Randy Clark wanted a challenge. He got the best of them.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
he got handed a lot there, and that game. I'm sure we'll talk about it all next week. But they frankly were overwhelmed going into that one. It was 2 divisions higher, complete overmatch.
Overmatched, and I think they made
outgunned, outpowered.
Outpowered. I mean, they didn't capitalize on any of Ursuline's mistakes early on. Like Ursuline, if you look at it, I mean, kind of played a little sloppy in that first half. Penalties,
they definitely were sloppy in the first half.
We saw the penalties. We saw them. They came back from like 2 penalties. It was like 1st and 20, and they come back twice on the same drive. So, I mean, that shows the power with them. That shows the division.
They just had an overwhelming offensive line.
Yeah.
Every time that ball got snapped, the running back, whether it was DC Farrell at the quarterback spot taking it, or I didn't get the names on it, but 23 or 3, whoever was taking the ball. Every time they got handed the football, they were in the second level going up against linebackers and defensive backs who were constantly closing in out of position because they were trying to fall into the gaps where their defensive ends normally would be getting those pushes, and they weren't able to because it seemed that those offensive linemen were grabbing 2 or 3 guys and pushing them down. They looked really phenomenal in that game. And shout out to DC Farrell because he looked awesome. He had a couple off throws, but for being a sophomore and only being in this system a couple of months, shout out to him, man. He looked phenomenal.
There was some good sides though from this Brookfield team. The defense. Connor here had some big hits. Colin Murphy had some big hits. I took some good things out of it. You're playing a team that was just in the state championship. Okay, so I tried to
and should have won. Put that out.
Even though it was a horrible loss. So I think they need to run Christian Davis more. He had a great carry to that first carry. I know he got stuffed on the next carry, but I think you need to give him more reps. I mean, he's a sophomore, he's young, but the only way he's going to get better and more experience is if you give him the ball. Donovan Pulaski, yes, he's quite capable of getting it done on the ground, but I mean, he can also get it done in the air as well. Why use him on the ground when you have a perfectly capable running back? There's a bunch of questions we can ask here. Like, he ran a bunch
and you know what, Matt? I'm sure when we get to see Randy Clark out there, I'm sure he'll give us an explanation and let us in a little bit onto what he's trying to do with this offense. I mean, the one thing I'm drawing up in my head though for Brookfield is going into the rest of the season, they've put the film out there that if they just make Donovan Pulowski's speed option to the right side, having Davis or number 3, Aiden Jones. Yeah, Aiden Jones. If they just have Aiden Jones still make that, but instead of having Pulowski follow him, turn it into a counter. So pull a guard back to the other side and let Pulowski go the other way. You're going to take the entire defense, who has seen nothing but film, off to the right side, and Pulowski will go left and should only have a safety, maybe a linebacker on him, if you can pull a guard with them and change who the lead blocker then becomes. But they set that up perfectly, and I keep waiting for it to happen because, I mean, they were running this system last year with Donovan, and I think you could see it potentially again this year that if they can just put that wrinkle into the offense, it makes that play 10 times more lethal because you don't know which way he's going then.
Yeah, I think they should try and do the I formation. You have Jones and
Jones is a phenomenal lead blocker.
Yeah. Then you put Davis can truck some people too. We saw him get some hits on defense last night.
Big ones too.
I think you should put them in the eye. Have those 2 guys come up and block for Pulaski if you want to do a run. That'd be something. And Pulaski can get some hits too. So
Pulaski plays defense, but you can also bring in AJ Bartland. Use him as your fullback as well in that situation. Go a 4-man I formation, full on goal line. Whew.
Maybe bring an extra offensive lineman coming around the edge, like a T-trick, maybe.
Yeah, we'll see how they end up developing. But Matt, moving on to games going on tonight here, we got to keep it there. We'll talk Brookfield more as the season goes on, and once they win a game, we'll be all over it again. But East Liverpool going up tonight against Minerva. Both teams had slightly underwhelming seasons. Minerva went big in the opposite direction. They went 0-10, only put up 51 points of offense. So I think there's a lot of question marks coming into their season on how they're going to develop. Are they going to develop? East Liverpool, they should be looking at this game as a chance to get an early win, find some momentum, and they can't get ahead of themselves here. They have to remember, hey, we're coming off a 3-5 season. People are looking at us like an easy win, and we're always going in there trying to upset them. Minerva's doing the same thing. They're coming in here looking to pull off the upset against East Liverpool, and they're just going to have to stay focused, take this game one play at a time, and then they should be able to come out with the win. I think it's very likely Liverpool can win this game because I think you look at them statistically, at least from last season, a much better team. Had they had over 3 times as many points on offense, and they allowed half as many points defensively. So you look at that. I know it's a new season, fresh stats coming in, fresh book, empty paper, whatever it is. But I think you got to at least look at that a little bit when you look at these first matchups on the season. Liverpool's just a little bit better of a team. They weren't great at home. They were better on the road in games last year. They only won once at home. So we'll see what they end up doing in this season. But this game, it's on the road. It's in Minerva. So they should be the favorite to take the game.
They should be.
All right, Matt. Next one here. Gerard Football. Fortunately, Mike's not here on the show. He'd love to get in on this one. It's his team. But they got a hard opponent tonight. They're going up against Streetsboro.
Oh, my bad.
Liberty.
I don't know. Liberty would be next week. Liberty's next week.
Okay. Oh, well, Gerard taking on Streetsboro. They lost this game last year 70-35. This was an absolute shootout. 105 points put up between the two teams in this game. And that game last year was second most points allowed by Streetsboro all last season. So Gerard, they had a bit of a better year, 7-5. They obviously, I'm sure, would like to have a better year this time out. But considering where they play, the teams they went up against, they put some big names in their schedule late in the season. Lake Perry in the playoffs was a hard one to get past. Hubbard, Poland, South Range, right there was a 3-game stretch that was very hard. Streetsboro to start things off was an epic game last year. You go into it, I think people are going to be leaning towards Streetsboro again as one of those favorites. They finished last season 27th in Division 3, and Gerard finished 27th in Division 4. So there's a full division between these two teams. Statewide, Gerard was ranked 214th. Streetsboro was ranked 147th. So you go back in this season, I think you're probably going to have Streetsboro come out on top, but I think Gerard stands the best chance of anybody on Streetsboro's schedule this year to keep it close.
Yeah, I'm probably going to go Streetsboro here, but they're just a tough team. But we've seen this Gerard team be tough as well. So
they can pull off that upset.
They can pull it off, I think. Never know.
All right, next game, Grand Valley, who went 1-7 last year, taking on Jefferson, a team they lost to 48-8 last year. Jefferson coming off the season, they went 4-6, 1-5, the Northeast 8. They started off pretty well. They won their first 3 games, all their out-of-conference stuff there, but then they got in, took a loss to Gerard, then went out of conference again, lost to Sharpsville, lost to Hubbard, Strother, South Range, Poland. And finally, final week of the season, they pick up their last win against Lakeview 20-3, but they got handed the gauntlet and completely ran out of momentum last year. Once it got cold up there off the lake, they started slowing down a little bit. So once again here, beginning of the season, I think they're going to be good. Grand Valley has a lot they need to build off of. They didn't win until the final week of their season last year on the 22nd of October against Beechwood. They came out 34-14, but I think you got to like Jefferson here in this game.
I like Jefferson. The Falcons have always had a great program every year. We've seen them a couple years ago, 2 years ago.
I think so.
Yeah, I think it was 2. I think it was something like that. But,
I think it was our first year we saw them.
Yeah, I think it was the first year we saw them. But I like their location right off the lake. Especially in the middle of October, like it's nice, cool breeze coming off the lake. It was snowing when we were there. I love that type of football up there by the lake. I think those teams up there in Ashtabula, just for the fact that they play near the lake, makes them. I honestly, I think it makes them a little bit tougher teams up there.
It does. I definitely agree with that.
In cold weather. Like, it's cold in the wintertime here, but if you go up by Lake Erie, it feels like you're in a different state.
It drops like 5, 6, 7 degrees once you start going a little bit north. And, they're up there in that snow belt. They get hit hard.
During that game, they're playing Conneaut, another tough battle team up there. Like, they weren't wearing long sleeves or anything. We were bundled up in hoodies and our Carhartts and stocking hats and winter gloves, and they're out there with no long sleeves.
Well, you were.
Yeah.
You were bundled up. I had my regular shirt and nice pea coat. You were freezing, though, because you had to work the camera, and you were right up next to the open window up there in Jefferson. You were like, in between plays, like, oh, my God, I'm so cold. And I was standing over a little bit more to the right, like, I'm perfectly fine, man. They got the heat on in here. What are you complaining about? The benefits of being the play-by-play guy sometimes.
Be quiet.
Cameraman gets set out into the weather.
We're inside.
That is why you want to be a basketball broadcaster. You're tired of the cold weather. I keep putting you in the elements. All right, next game, maybe the highest profile game we have on the network going into this week. Austintown Fitch coming off a 7-4 campaign last year. Did pretty well all in all. Made it 2 games deep into the playoffs. They ended up dropping to Archbishop Hoban. That's not a bad team to lose to. If you're going to lose to somebody, make it a team of a high profile like that, like Hoban, who went 12-4 last year, started off their season with a win against Bishop Sycamore, and we're going up against the best of the best from all over the country, and they made it pretty far into the playoffs. I think they made it either Final Four or state title game before they ended up finally losing to Winton Woods out of Cincinnati. So that was a great team to lose to if you were Fitch last season to end it out. And it's hard to find a better opponent to take that final loss to than that. And they're going up against a team coming all the way across the United States from Henderson, Nevada, the Foothill Falcons coming in here, the Henderson International Football Falcons. And they come in 5-3 off of last season. Their defense lacked. They allowed 59 points in one game to Bishop Gorman, then met them again in the playoffs, lost 63-6. Everyone knows who Bishop Gorman is, the number 1 high school in all of Las Vegas, Nevada. And they put some pretty nice talents out there, including Tate Martell, who ended up not being as great as we thought he was going to be.
Man, the pride of what? He went to 3 different colleges. What was that last?
He started at Ohio State, went to the U, then he finished at UNLV and stopped playing football because he didn't get any playing time.
The pride of the Running Rebels. Didn't even play 1 game.
I think he's one of the craziest stories we might have ever had, though, in the last 20 years when you talk about a prospect. He was the number 1 rated quarterback. He's one of the highest rated prospects to ever come out of high school.
Yeah. Got
to Ohio State. Then got to Miami, and they went, you can't be a quarterback in this league. He goes, I'll be a wide receiver. And then he goes to UNLV. He's like, surely I can play here. And they're like, why would we play you? You were rejected everywhere else. It was complete.
The number 1 problem, we'll make it quick, he had an attitude problem.
He did have an attitude problem. That was a big problem with him. Yeah, if you ever watched him on Spectrum's QB1 when that came out, it was their first year doing it. It was just, it took you behind the scenes. And first time I saw Tate Martell, I was like, he ain't going to do nothing. And I was right. One of the few times as a broadcaster I've been right on a call like that, because I'm also the same guy that thought Joe Burrow was going to be a bust in the NFL, and we saw how that went. He played in the Super Bowl last year.
I've said some right stuff. I've said some wrong and right stuff. So
it doesn't happen often when we're actually right on those bold picks. That's why they're bold.
Yes.
But, Matt, you come into this game, and I think it's a huge question mark. Fitch is a good team, but who knows what to expect out of this Henderson International. They come in, 5-3 last year. Didn't have a great defense, but I'm trying to pull up their season prior, 7-5 in the season prior, and they're about 7-8 win team. They have a really hard schedule. Nationally, they're ranked around 1600th in the nation, which doesn't sound great, but remember, there's a lot of high schools overall, and the fact they're playing at a national level They're ranked 11th in the state of Nevada alone. In their division in Nevada, they're ranked 10th overall. So this is a really good team. Austintown Fitch, they're looking to grab the best opponents for this first game, and I think they did just that. I think they're going to test out a lot of things, but the likelihood of them coming out with a win here, I know a lot of people around us, I think, would say, oh, yeah, Fitch can take it. I don't know. They're going up against a team that plays nationally. When you talk about that, you're really hard-pressed to find a way to win that game. That is about as hard of an opponent as you can find. But I think it sets them up well for the rest of the season, with that being said.
I agree.
All right. Glad you agree. Because next game we got going on, a team I think has question marks coming into the season because they lose their head coach in John Armani, but a lot of people still have them very hyped up and as one of the favorites here to take home the MVAC, LeBray. They're going in here off of an 11-2 season. They're going up against Lakeview here in week 1, who went 0-10. Didn't score any points in this game against LeBray last year. So I think LeBray, quick pick on this one. I mean, they scored 500 points of offense last year. Lakeview didn't even score 100. So you're looking at a huge lopsided matchup going into this one. I'd like to see Lakeview keep it close, keep it competitive, but I think you have a high chance of that one of those week 1, I'll say blowout games. I don't want to say blowout, but I think LeBray is going to pull away in this one fairly quickly.
Yeah. I hate to use that term, especially with high school, because they're just high school kids. But, I mean, LeBray, top program. They did lose their coach, but, I mean, most of those guys, I think the guy that brought him was within the program, so he knows what he's doing, hopefully. So it should be pretty good. But I love the story of the LeBray, former LeBray coach going to Western Reserve. I think he can – I know, are we going to talk about them?
Yeah, then the next one up.
Okay, cool. So you just want to go? I mean,
go right for it.
LeBray, but Western Reserve, they've been a program on the downfall past couple years ever since the departure of Andy Hake, who's now at Valley Christian. I think they have the guy now bringing him in from LeBray. He made LeBray a great program. I think he can do the same thing here at Western Reserve. Saying that. Liberty's new head coach is definitely turning things around. It was his first year last year. It was definitely way better than any of their past seasons. We called Liberty a couple years ago when they were with their former coach. We're not throwing shade or anything, but they didn't look the way they did now. So I like this Liberty team. They were tough last year. They had some close and tough games. I think we see a better Liberty team this year. I think they're going to keep getting better and better.
Matt, here's the one downside that Liberty fans have to deal with this year. They had a freshman quarterback that was outstanding last year, came in and looked phenomenal. Then he leaves for Ursuline and looks even better this year. So that's DC Farrell.
Was that the guy we saw last night?
That was the guy we saw last night, DC Farrell from Ursuline. So they lost their starting quarterback from last season, who was phenomenal. So, I mean, how would you feel as a fan of Brookfield that they bring out if Christian Davis had transferred to Ursuline after last season? That would have been heartbreaking for Brookfield fans and us broadcasters alike. But that's what Liberty has to deal with this year. So they're in the same position they were last year, finding a new quarterback. They found one with this new head coach last year. Now going into his second season. You hope he can find another hidden gem because he found one of the best hidden gems around on this roster. And, I've been to that school. They are full of athletes over there. I mean, their track and field program is probably the best of the bunch. I mean, I think they had ladies down at state last year. And their basketball programs, both boys and girls, were in the districts last year. So this is a school full of athletes. I don't think they're going to have a problem finding an athlete, but finding a quarterback that understands the game and can get those passes downfield is a whole different monster. I hope they can because it's a team that I'd like to see get back at it because they started out really well last year, but they had LeBray and Garfield, 2 playoff teams to finish out the season, or else they would have been a 7-3 team overall, and you might have convinced DC Farrell to stay with those wins potentially. It's hard to say no to Ursuline on a transfer like that, but coming in here against Western Reserve, like you said, kind of been on the downfall since Hake left there. They're still a good program overall, Matt. Western Reserve's actually where we did that lightning delay game where turned things around on us. And that was a great game, too.
People remember that because of what we did.
Yeah, but
got some praises that night.
yeah, we did. But this is a team, Western Reserve, finished 5-6, but they were 5-1 in conference play. So you got to watch out for them. They're a good team over there in the MVAC Scarlet, and I think really only because of the fact that I don't know what Liberty is going to be doing at quarterback. I think I'm going to hand the win in this one over to Western Reserve.
Yeah, I'm going to go Western Reserve here. I think their program is going to be a lot better this year. And so I think Liberty will overcome that downside of losing their quarterback. But I'm going to go Western Reserve here.
All right, next game on the schedule. Hold on here as my web pages are loading. We got Steubenville taking on Lewisville. So should be an interesting game here. I mean, Steubenville is a program that, they've been all right. They came off a really good year last year, 9-3. Lewisville on the other side last season, I believe they were pretty good. They ended up 2-8. I'm thinking of their basketball last season, but 2-8 for Lewisville last year for the Leopards. But they had a pretty decent defense. If they had the offense to match it, I think they would have won a lot more games. They ended up picking some late wins in the season against the Lions and Matt, that team from Wheeling, West Virginia, and Lindsley that we got the chance to see, I believe, against Mooney last season. They took a loss to open up the season last year against Barberton to this Lewisville team, and they just never seemed to be able to recover. They had close games really all throughout the year, but they just didn't seem to have the offense until the late stretch to finally get over that hump. I hope maybe that they can build off of that finish to the season last year in late October and put it here into the late August, but they're going up against a team in Steubenville that is a really high-profile team here. They lost in overtime in the playoffs to Kenston out of Chagrin Falls here, a team that ranks in the top 100 in the state of Ohio, top 15 in Division III, and in their region they're the number 2 team out of Wheeling. So they're a program that Lewisville is going to have a big uphill battle against. It's the same situation. We see a lot of teams putting themselves in the season. They want to go up against a really great opponent to get their guys prepared, get their guys into the right mindset. That's what this game is. Likelihood of coming out with a win, not high, but Lewisville could shock them. But I got Steubenville.
Yeah, I'm going to go Steubenville here. Remember that. The cat, Eloise, is going to go with Steubenville too, right?
Well, it seems like that's the cat, right?
Oh, yeah. There's 3 of them. 4.
Geez, 4 cats.
Yeah,
Jeez,
we
Matt.
got Eloise, we have Baby, Jack, and Kitty.
Very creative names on that end.
Yeah, I know. I didn't come up with them.
Ah, okay.
Eloise. Eloise was named after Eloise Christmas.
All right, next game here. East Palestine's taking on Malvern. Malvern's coming off a season they went 9-4, went undefeated in the Inner Valley, and put up over 350 points of offense. They rank as one of the top teams in Division 7 going into the season. They're ranked 120th in the Cleveland region as well. Although that Cleveland region not quite accurate on where they have teams ranked, but they didn't have a great strength of schedule this year, so take that record at what it will be. But East Palestine, they're coming off an 0-10 season. They still have a lot of holes to fix going into this year. I think a lot of people here at YSN consider, it's the hometown of the business here. Hope that East Palestine can turn it around, but I think it's probably an uphill battle in this one. Malvern's probably going to take it.
It is, but just because they're from our network's hometown, I'm going to go Bulldogs here. Come on, let's turn it around. Let's get over that 0-10 season. Let's come up with a Week 1 win. Come on. Eloise agrees, right?
Well, next game on our schedule here, Matt, we got Mcdonald taking on Southern. Both of these teams, or Southern especially, looked really good last year. They were in the top of the battle for the EOAC with the likes of Valley Christian and United last season. They played really great all in all. Mcdonald went 3-6, but Matt, you and I got to see them early on. They have some really talented athletes up there. I mean, they're a tough team to go up against. Yeah, and they did fall short. They didn't quite have a great defense last year. Their offense was a little under par, I'll say. So I think when you look back at what this team is, I think they can be a lot better than what their record says. They put together a decently hard schedule as well, so they took some losses out of conference. But they're a team that really needs to get back in the win column Going up against Southern might be a good place to start, but Southern's coming off such a great season. 8-5, 2-0 in conference play, put up almost 400 points of offense, had a really good defense last year, made it down into the playoffs. They lost in double overtime to St. Paul out of Norwalk, 21-14, an absolute heartbreaker in the second round. But, I mean, this is a team that, like, right there, 2 overtimes away from making it deep into the playoffs and probably had a pretty good shot at a run. So I think Southern's returning a lot of guys here. Like I said, I don't have rosters of any of these teams yet. So
we saw the Southern team take on Valley Christian, and they took it to Valley Christian.
Yeah, they did. They looked awesome in that game.
They sure did. We've seen Mcdonald in a lot of close games too. They still have Hawks and Gilligan back there, right?
I believe so. That's the big question. I mean, because he was good. Austin Gilligan and Logan Hawk.
Yeah.
I think Hawk might have been a senior. I think one was a senior, one was a junior. I can't remember, though. It's been a while. I've seen too many rosters since. That's the problem.
I know. Oh, it is. If we had $1 for every roster we've seen, we'd be rich, man.
Yeah, well, I'd probably have a couple $100 at that point. I don't know about rich because $1 doesn't add up too quickly.
Hey, over the past 3 years,
past 2 years. Well, next game going up on here, Pymatuning Valley taking on Mineral Ridge. This one's out there in PV in Andover.
Ridge Rams.
Last year PV took the game 22-7, finished off with a 6-4 season all in all. Mineral Ridge, led by their quarterback Mark Bunch, went 4-5 last season. They weren't too bad. They just face it. I mean, the MVAC was a competitive bunch in both the Scarlet and Gray tiers last season. I expect it to be again. I think I said it yesterday. I don't remember if it was on the show or not, but it reminds me of the MAC in college football. Maybe they don't have a state championship caliber team outside of, one, which is Springfield at the moment, at least. We'll see how they recover going into this season after losing their first game of the year. But, they don't really have the super contenders, but they just have a ton of teams that are willing to just fight one another, and it gets physical. It gets fun. It reminds me of midweek action in the MAC here. So obviously same state, same region. They seem to play like it, in my opinion, at least. But This game, I think it should be close. I mean, 22-7 last year, and I think that this is a decent team surrounding on each side. So I really don't know which way to go with this one. I think I'm going to go Ridge in it.
Are they in Ridge or in Andover?
What's that?
Are they in Ridge or are they in
Andover? They're in Andover.
Okay. So, that's a long way. I'm up here in Ridge now, but Andover's all the way down by my house. That's going more than a half an hour away. Andover's 20 minutes from my house, so that's a long way for Ridge to go. PV, a good solid team. I've been there. Great turf. I believe they're still on the same turf they've been on, but I'm going to go Ridge here, too. I like Bunch. I think he's developed a lot over the past couple of years. We caught him here and there, and I'll go Ridge here, too.
All right, sounds good.
He's going into his senior year, isn't he?
I think so. He's been there for a while. If he's not already graduated, then it's got to be his senior year.
Ever since we started. So, you remember when we went to Creston, Ohio, to see them play Norwayne? That was 2 years ago, and he was there. So. Yeah.
Well, I believe we have one mistake here on the website between Monroe Central and Edison. YSN has it scheduled for today, but Edison came out with the win yesterday against Monroe Central, so might have had a scheduling mishap there because Edison won their game 42-8 over Monroe. So good on them picking up that win. But I looked at them, I'm like, wait a minute, this game's already happened. So scheduling, it can become a problem sometimes. It was a game that got moved earlier, I guess, and communication must have slipped there for a second. But next game, St. Thomas Aquinas taking on Struthers. I got Struthers in that game. I'm going local.
Yeah, I'll go Struthers too. But Wildcats.
Warren JFK going against Champion in Champion. I think this is a really fun game when you look at these two schools. JFK is a far away favorite to win it at the moment, but I like these MVAC teams. They're fun to watch, but I'll go JFK here. They're a couple divisions higher, I think.
I'll go JFK too. We called them last year. We called the JFK Warren No, they played at Warren Harding. Who they
I don't
play?
remember who they faced last year when we called that game. You're right, we did see him last year.
They were at Warren Harding. It was Warren JFK versus. Oh man, it was a heck of a game. There's some penalties in that game, but who was it? It's
Mogador.
Oh yeah,
They lost at 16-14. It was one of their only losses in the regular season.
Yeah, that was a tough game.
Because they made a deep playoff run too before they lost to Newark Catholic 14-7.
Yeah.
It was a good season last year for JFK. I think they're going to return again. Next one here, Matt. Wyndham at Lisbon. I think I go Wyndham in this game. I don't think Lisbon had too great of a season last year, so I'm going Wyndham.
I'm going to go Lisbon here. I've talked to the guy that does the Lisbon games. He's talking a lot of good about them, so I'm going to go with him. He kind of got me on the bus there. Rick Daly from Lisbon, great guy. A great guy to call.
Matt, I'm just thinking, you talk to the broadcaster who does the games. It's like talking to us yesterday about Brookfield versus Ursuline.
I know. I know. So I'm hooked on him. So I'm going to go. I'll go with Lisbon. All right. John Anderson.
Fair enough there. All right. United taking on Waterloo. I got United in that game. They were really good last year. I think they're going to be right back.
I'll go United too.
So, Matt, that leaves us down to the final of 22 games tonight. Our game, Valley Christian, Campbell Memorial, Battle of John Napick for all the bragging rights. It was a game Valley Christian took big last season, and they're looking to do it yet again. Valley Christian finished 6-3. They won this game in Campbell 36-6. So coming in this year, it's a big turnaround. Valley Christian, technically the home team this year. We'll see how that develops. But Memorial, they're coming off a 1-9 season. They couldn't find a win in conference play. Granted, like I said, that MVAC is a tough conference to play in, and they had plenty of struggles in it, lost their last 7 games of the season. But I mean, look at their last 7 games. Crestview, Brookfield, Liberty, Garfield, Champion, Newton, Folsom, LeBray, all playoff teams. So they were just on the bad end of a bad schedule.
Yeah, they were. But, I mean, Campbell, they've had a great basketball program the past year, so maybe we can get some of those basketball players out there that had a lot of hardworking guys. Maybe they can translate that on the football field. Valley Christian, though, every player on that team has Wolverine blood.
Yeah, we'll go into VC here in a second. I want to, give Campbell a little bit of love here because, we'll be talking a lot of Valley Christian this season. Andrew King going into his second season at the helm of the football program. They haven't had a winning season in 10 years since 2012 when they went 6-4. They returned their junior quarterback in David Moore, who went 64-120 last year. They got their leading returning rusher back into Sean Will. He went 178 yards on 30 carries last year, averaged 6 yards per carry. They said that David Moore, he's going to be the leader of this team. It's who they're looking at to get things going. They got a couple of nice players on defense in Malachi Taylor and Matt Kozarinski. They got a pretty good team all in all, but they just weren't able to put together the wins last year. They returned 17 starters all in all, so I think you're looking for a much better season. They were really young last year, and that cost them in this game against Valley Christian, who on their side was pretty young, but for whatever reason, Andy Hake got in there. He lit a fire under those boys, and it's one that ignited them to an epic season, and what we've heard, a pretty good offseason as well.
Yeah, but it's going to be a very enjoyable game, especially because we'll be on the call tonight.
Right.
But,
I can't wait.
I love calling these games like this. In my eyes, this is a rivalry. It's a battle of the field that they play on.
Right, Battle of John Napick Field.
Campbell's field, but Valley Christian plays there too. So it's kind of like, hey, this is our field.
Bragging rights. Who's the best in the stadium, right?
Yeah. So
it should be a big matchup, and we're looking forward tonight. Matt, on the side of Valley Christian, Andy Hake, he's also going to his second season. So, we got 2 coaches that are going to be growing against one another, and I think that could lead to a really great rivalry if both these teams continue to develop. And this Valley Christian squad, they did drop their final game to Cuyahoga Heights last year, 16-13. It was a fun game to see. Andy Hake took it like a champ, so did the rest of this team. They're bringing in Jordan Pete, starting quarterback this year. he should be looking for a big one. He's got weapons galore around him. They do lose their leading runner in Cam Davenport, but they had 3 or 4 other guys that can make those big plays too on the offensive side. At the running back spot, they returned Brian Tubbs. On defense, Vashawn Gurley, John Trell, John Quall, right, the John. They got like 4 or 5 guys. I've never seen someone have the name like John Quall or something, and they got like 5 guys. John Trell, and they got some superstars over there. I got the
another one. John Quall. There's John Trell.
Jashawn Lindsay, their running back. John Trell Mixon, John Quall, Pabellin, Jawan Lindsay, Javante Pabellin. Those are all the Johns going on the roster this season.
The Johns, the power
Jays.
Johns.
Yeah, but I mean, hey, this Valley Christian School, we saw them a lot last year. They were fun to watch. I think we're going to have 5 games with them as well. What's that?
We've seen Campbell here and there too.
Yeah,
Brookfield.
They're a team that's been growing. I think they don't always look the best, but I think you've seen improvements out of them year to year, even if the records don't translate to that.
Back in the day, Campbell was a force to reckon with. So hopefully they can get back there. It should be a good game, but let's have to wait and see. But hey, it's getting to be that time. We're running a little late.
Yeah, it is, Matt. And you and I can't make picks on this game because I think we're a little biased in it as well. But spoiler alert, we'd both be taking Valley Christian. We're on the game tonight, though, so you're right. I mean, who are we going to hide it? We've been talking about them all off season.
I'm just excited for football.
I am. It's back, and we're in the full swing of things.
Yeah. If you're listening to us tonight, if we make a couple of shaky mistakes, Alec, you've been calling baseball. We haven't called football. I haven't called it in a couple of months.
Got to knock that early season rust off.
Yeah, we got to get the rust off. So we might say I might try and say funny things that don't end up being funny.
Just no cold bowls of soup, please. That's all I ask.
We won't go with that again. I won't do that again.
You got to find a new catchphrase.
Oh, I'll find it. I got a couple of mine.
Oh, dear. Well, you guys are going to have to tune into that game and the other 21 games going on in the network tonight. It should be a phenomenal night. I believe Audible Calls go in 2 days as well, so they should be back as well with Mike Ackelson. Power Hours Super Show coming up next on the network. But, Matt, we'll finish things off here. Highlights of the week. I'm going high school ball, baby. It's back. I'm ready for it tonight. Let's go.
I'm ready for it, too.
That's what you're going with, all right. Then this week's Meathead of the Week.
All right, this week's Meathead of the Week. This is special. Okay. I'm going to go referees again, man. I've seen some bad calls. I've seen some bad baseball calls past couple of weeks.
So you're going umpires.
Yeah, umpires. We're going umpires. I saw this call the other day. I'm like, oh, my gosh. Like, what the heck happened here? And this is going in with the scrappers, too. Like, all baseball. Like, I've seen bad calls in MLB and this, and it's horrible. When are we gonna get there's been a lot of talk of like, when are we gonna get those? What is it? The robotic umpires out here, because it's bad.
Well, Matt. Yeah, it's a hard job. Someone's got to do it. But there are a couple too many mistakes sometimes. But we are out of time here on the show, so we got to wrap it up. Power Hour up next on the network. We'll see you later tonight. You'll hear us.